Hello, my little angels. I bring you a wonderful and lovely story for you to listen and enjoy. Today's story name is The Strange Old Shop, written by Enid Blyton. Welcome to the land of magic and adventure. The adventures really began on the day that Molly and Peter went out to spend 3 shillings on a present for their mother's birthday. They emptied the money out of their money box and counted it. 3 shillings, said Peter. Good. Now, what shall we buy, Mother? Mother loves old things, said Molly. If we could find an old shop somewhere full of old things, funny spoons, quaint vases, old glasses, and beads, something of that sort would be lovely for Mother. She would love an old tea caddy to keep the tea in, I'm sure, or perhaps an old vase. All right, said Peter. We will go and find one of those shops this very day. Put on your hat and come on, Molly. Off they went and ran into the town. It's a shop with the word antiques over it that we want, said Peter. Antiques means old things. Just look out for that, Molly. But there seemed to be no shop with the word antiques printed over it at all. The children left the main street and went down a little turning. There were more shops, but still not the one they wanted. So on they went and came to a small, narrow street whose houses were so close that there was hardly any light in the road. And there, tucked away in the middle, was a shop with antiques printed on a label inside the dirty window. Good, said Peter. Here is a shop that sells old things. Look, Molly, do you see that strange little vase with swans set all around it? I'm sure Mother would like that. It is marked 2 shillings and 6 pence. We could buy that and some flowers to put in it. So into the old dark shop they went. It was so dark that the children stumbled over some piled up rugs on the floor. Nobody seemed to be about. Peter went to the counter and rapped on it. A tiny door at the back opened and out came the strangest little man, no higher than the countertop. He had pointed ears like a pixie. The children stared at him in surprise. He looked very cross and spoke sharply. What do you want? Making a noise like that? We want to buy the vase with swans round it, said Peter, muttering and grumbling to himself. The little chap picked up the vase and pushed it across the counter. Peter put down half a crown. Can I have some paper to wrap the vase in? He asked politely. You see, it's for my mother's birthday, and I don't want her to see me carrying it home. Grumbling away to himself, the little man went to a pile of boxes at the back of the shop and began to open one to look for a piece of paper. The children watched. To their enormous surprise, a large black cat with golden eyes jumped out of the box and began to spit and snarl at the little man. He smacked it and put it back again. He opened another box. Out of that came a great wreath of green smoke that wound about the shop, and it smelled strange. The little man caught hold of it, as if it were a ribbon, and tried to stuff it back into the back box again. But it broke off and went wandering away. How he stamped and raged. The children felt quite frightened. We would better go without the paper, whispered Molly to Peter. But just then another extraordinary thing happened. Out of the next box came a crowd of blue butterflies. They flew into the air, and the little man shouted with rage again. He darted to the door and shut it, afraid that the butterflies would escape. To the children's horror, they saw him lock the door too and put the key into his pocket. We can't get out till he lets us go, said Molly. Oh dear, why did we ever come here? I'm sure that little man is a gnome or something. The little fellow opened another box, and hey presto, out jumped a red fox. It gave a short bark and then began to run about the shop, its nose to the ground. The children were half afraid of being bitten, and they both sat in an old chair together, their legs drawn up off the ground, out of the way of the fox. It was a most curious shop they had ever been in. Fancy keeping all those queer things in boxes. Really, there must be magic about somewhere. It couldn't be a proper shop. The children noticed a little stairway leading off the shop about the middle, and suddenly at the top of this there appeared somebody else. It was somebody tall and thin, with such a long beard that it swept the ground. On his head was a pointed hat that made him seem taller still. Look, said Molly. Doesn't he look like a wizard? Tip it, what are you doing? Cried the newcomer in a strange, deep voice like the rumbling of faraway thunder. Looking for a piece of paper, answered the little man in a surly tone, and all I can find is butterflies and foxes, a black cat, and what? You have dared to open those boxes? Shouted the other angrily. He stamped down the stairs and then saw the children. And who are you? He asked, staring at them. How dare you come here? We wanted to buy this vase, said Peter, frightened. Well, seeing you are here, you can help tip it to catch the fox, said the tall man, twisting his beard up into a knot and tying it under his chin. Come on. I don't want to, said Molly. He might bite me. Unlock the door and let us go out. Not till the fox and all the butterflies are caught and put into their boxes again, said the tall man. Oh dear, said Peter, making no movement to get out of the chair in which he and Molly were still sitting with their legs drawn up. I do wish we were safely at home. And then the most extraordinary thing of all happened. The chair they were in began to creak and groan, and suddenly it rose up in the air with the two children in it. They held tight, wondering whatever was happening. It flew to the door, but that was shut. It flew to the window, but that was shut too. Meantime, the wizard and the tippet were running after it, crying out in rage. How dare you use our wishing chair? Wish it back, wish it back. I shan't, cried Peter. Go on, wishing chair, take us home. The chair, finding that it could not get out of the door or the window, flew up the little stairway. It nearly got stuck in the doorway at the top, which was rather narrow, but just managed to squeeze itself through. Before the children could see what the room upstairs was like, the chair flew to the window there, which was open, and out at it went into the street. It immediately rose up very high indeed, far beyond the house tops, and flew toward the children's home. How amazed they were, and how tightly they clung to the arms it would be dreadful to fall. I say, Molly, can you hear a flapping noise? Said Peter. Has the chair got wings anywhere? Molly peeped cautiously over the edges of the chair. Yes, she said. It has a little red wing growing out of each leg, and they make the flapping noise. How queer! The chair began to fly downwards. The children saw that they were just over their garden. Go to our playroom, chair, said Peter quickly. The chair went to a big shed at the bottom of the garden. Inside was a playroom for the children, and here they kept all their toys and books and could play any game they liked. The chair flew in at the open door and came to rest on the floor. The children jumped off and looked at one another. The first real adventure we have ever had in our lives, said Molly in delight. Oh, Peter, to think we have got a magic chair, a wishing chair. Well, it isn't really ours, said Peter, putting the swan vase carefully down on the table. Perhaps we had better send it back to that shop. I suppose we had, said Molly sadly. It would be so lovely if we could keep it. Go back to your shop, chair, commanded Peter. The chair didn't move an inch. Peter spoke to it again. Still, the chair wouldn't move. There it was, and there it stayed. And suddenly, the children noticed that its little red wings had gone from the legs. It looked just an ordinary chair now. See, Molly, the chair hasn't any wings, cried Peter. It can't fly. I expect it is only when it grows wings that it can fly. It must just have grown them when we were sitting in it in the shop. What luck for us! Peter, let's wait till the chair has grown wings again and then get in it and see where it goes, said Molly, her face red with excitement. Oh, do let's. Well, it might take us anywhere, said Peter doubtfully. Still, we have always wanted adventures, Molly, haven't we? So we will try. The very next time our wishing chair grows wings, we will sit in it and fly off again. Hurrah, said Molly. I hope it will be tomorrow. Chapter 2, The Giant's Castle. Each day, Molly and Peter ran down to their playroom in the garden and looked at their wishing chair to see it if had grown wings again, but each time they were disappointed. It hadn't. It may grow them in the night, said Peter, but we can't possibly keep coming here in the dark to see. We must just be patient. Sometimes the children sat in the chair and wished themselves away, but nothing happened at all. It was really very disappointing. And one day the chair grew its wings again. It was a Saturday afternoon, which was very jolly as the children were not at school. They ran down to the playroom and opened the door, and the very first thing they saw was that the chair had grown wings. They couldn't help seeing this because the chair was flapping its wings about as if it was going to fly off. Quick, quick, shouted Peter, dragging Molly to the chair. Jump in, it's going to fly. They were just in time. The chair rose up in the air, flapping its wings strongly, and made for the door. Out it went and rose high into the air at once. The children clung on tightly in the greatest delight. Where do you suppose it is going? Asked Peter. Goodness knows, said Molly. Let it take us whatever it wants to. It will be exciting anyhow. If it goes back to that funny shop, we can easily jump off and run away when it goes in at the door. But the chair didn't go to the old shop. Instead, it kept on steadily towards the west, where the sun was beginning to sink. By and by, a high mountain rose up below, and the children looked down at it in astonishment. On the top was an enormous castle. Where, where is this? I wonder, said Peter. Oh, I say, Molly, the chair is going down to the castle. Down it went, flapping its rose red wings. Soon it came to the castle roof, and instead of going lower and finding a door or a window, the chair found a nice flat piece of roof and settled down there with a sigh, as if it were quite tired out. Come on, Molly, let's explore, said Peter excitedly. He jumped off the chair and ran to a flight of enormous steps that led down to the inside of the castle. He peeped down, no one was about. This is the biggest castle I ever saw, said Peter. I wonder who lives here. Let's go and see. They went down the steps and came to a big staircase leading from a landing. On every side were massive doors, bolted on the outside. I hope there are no prisoners inside, said Molly, half afraid. The stairs suddenly ended in a great hall. The children stood and looked in astonishment. Sitting at an enormous table was a giant as big as 6 men. His eyes were on a book, and he was trying to add up figures. 3 times 7, 3 times 7, 3 times 7, he muttered to himself. I never can remember. Where is that miserable little pixie? If he doesn't know, I'll turn him into a black beetle. The giant lifted up his head and shouted so loudly that both children put their hands over their ears. Chinky, Chinky! A pixie, not quite so big as the children, came running out of what looked like a scullery. He held an enormous boot in one hand and a very small boot brush in the other. Stop cleaning my boots and listen to me, ordered the giant. I can't do my sums again. I'm adding up all I spent last week and it won't come right. What are 3 times 7? 3 times 7, said the pixie with a frightened look on his little pointed face. That's what I said, thundered the bad tempered giant. I know, they are the same as 7 times 3, said the pixie. Well, I don't know what 7 times 3 are either, roared the giant. You tell me, what's the good of having a servant who doesn't know his tables? Quick, what are 3 times 7? I don't know, stammered the poor pixie. Then I will lock you into the top room of the castle till you do know, cried the giant in a rage. He picked up that pixie and went to the stairs. Then he saw the children standing there and he stopped in astonishment. Who are you and what are you doing here? He asked. We have just come on a flying visit, said Peter boldly. We know what 3 times 7 are and 7 times 3 too. So if you let that pixie go, we will tell you. You tell me then, you clever children, cried the giant, delighted. They are 21, said Peter. The giant, still holding the pixie tightly in his hand, went across to the table and added up some figures. Yes, 21, he said. Now, why didn't I think of that? Good. Let the pixie go, begged Molly. Oh no, said the giant, with a wicked grin. He shall be shut up in the top room of my castle, and you shall be my servants instead, and help me to add up my sums. Come along with me whilst I shut up Chinky. He pushed the 2 angry children in front of him and made them go all the way up the stairs until they came to the topmost door. The giant unbolted it and pushed the weeping pixie inside. Then he bolted it again and locked it. Quick, whispered Peter to Molly. Let's race up these steps to the roof and get onto our magic chair. So whilst the giant was locking the door, the 2 of them shot up the steps to the roof. The giant didn't try to stop them. He stood and roared with laughter. Well, I don't know how you expect to escape that way, he said. You will have to come down the steps again, and I shall be waiting here to catch you. Then what a spanking you will get. The children climbed out onto the flat piece of castle roof. There was their chair, standing just where they had left it, its red wings gleaming in the sun. They threw themselves into it, and Peter cried, Go to the room where that little pixie Chinky is. The chair rose into the air, flew over the castle roof, and then down to a big window. It was open, and the chair squeezed itself inside. Chinky, the pixie, was there, sitting on the floor, weeping. When he saw the chair coming in, with the 2 children sitting in it, he was so astonished that he couldn't even get up off the floor. Quick, cried Molly. Come into this chair, Chinky. We'll help you to escape. Who is talking in there? Boomed the giant's enormous voice, and the children heard the bolts being undone and the key turned to unlock the door. Quick, quick, Chinky, shouted Peter, and he dragged the amazed pixie to the magic chair. They all 3 sat in it, huddled together and Peter shouted, "Take us home." The door flew open and the giant rushed in just as the chair sailed out of the window. He ran to the window and made a grab at the chair. His big hand knocked against a leg and the chair shook violently. Chinky nearly fell off, but Peter grabbed him and pulled him back safely. Then they sailed high up into the air, far out of reach of the angry giant. "We have escaped," shouted Peter. "What an adventure! Cheer up, Chinky. We will take you home with us. You shall live with us if you like. We have a fine playroom at the end of our garden. You can live there and no one will know. What fun we will have with you and the wishing chair." "You are very kind to me," said Chinky gratefully. "I shall love to live with you. I can take you on many, many adventures." "Hurrah!" shouted the two children. "Look, Chinky, we are going down to our garden." Soon they were safely in the garden, and the chair flew in at the open door of the playroom. Its wings disappeared and it settled itself down with a long sigh as if to say, "Home again." "You can make a nice bed of the cushions from the sofa," said Molly to the pixie, "and I'll give you a rug from the hall chest to cover yourself with. We must go now because it is past our tea time. We will come and see you again tomorrow. Good luck." Chapter 3. The Rabbit Groans. It was such fun to have a real live pixie to play with. Molly and Peter went to their playroom every day and talked with Chinky, whom they had so cleverly rescued from the giant's castle. He refused to have anything to eat because he said he knew the fairies in the garden and they would bring him anything he needed. "Chinky, will you do something for us?" asked Molly. "You know, we can't be with the magic chair always to watch when it grows wings. But if you could watch it for us and come and tell us when you see it has wings, then we could rush to our playroom and go on another adventure. It would be lovely if you would do that." "Of course," said Chinky, who was a most obliging, merry little Pharaoh. "I will never take my eyes off the chair." Well, will you believe it? That very night, just as Chinky was going off to sleep, and the playroom was in darkness, he felt a strange little wind blowing from somewhere. It was a chair waving its wings about. Chinky was up in a trice and ran out of the playroom to the house. He knew which the children's room was, and he climbed up the old pear tree and knocked on the window. It wasn't long before Molly and Peter, each in warm dressing gowns, were running down to the playroom. They lighted a candle and saw the chair's red wings once more. "Come on," cried Peter, jumping into the chair. "Where are we off to this time, I wonder?" Molly jumped in too, and Chinky squeezed himself beside them. The chair was indeed very full. It flew out of the door and up into the air. The moon was up, and the world seemed almost as light as day. The chair flew to the south and then went downwards into a strange little wood that shone blue and green. "Hello, hello, we are going to visit the Grabbit Gnomes," said the pixie. "I don't like that. They grab everything they can, especially things that don't belong to them. We must be careful. They don't grab our wishing chair. The chair came to the rest in a small clearing near to some queer toadstool houses. The doors were in the great thick stalks, and the windows were in the top part. No one was about. Oh, do let's explore this strange village, cried Molly in delight. I do want to. Well, hurry up then, said Chinky nervously. If the grabbed gnomes see us here, they will soon be trying to grab this, that, and the other. The two children ran off to the toadstool houses and looked at them. They really were lovely. How Molly wished she had one at home in the garden. It would be so lovely to have one to live in. Whatever is Chinky doing, said Peter, turning round to look. He's got a rope or something, said Molly in surprise. Oh, don't let us bother about him, Peter. Don't look here. There are 6 little toadstools all laid ready for breakfast. Fancy, they use them for tables as well as for our houses. Suddenly there was a loud shout from a nearby toadstool house. Robbers, burglars! Someone was leaning out of the window of a big toadstool house, pointing to the children. In a trice, all the gravid gnomes woke up and came pouring out of their houses. Robbers, what are you doing here, robbers? No, they are not, said Chinky the pixie, pushing his way through the crowd of excited gnomes. They are only children adventuring here. How did you come? Asked a gnome at once. We came in our wishing chair, said Molly, and then she wished she hadn't answered. For the gravid gnomes gave a yell of delight and rushed off to where their chair was, standing in the moonlight. We have always wanted one. We have always wanted one, they shouted. Come on, let's take it safely to our cave where we hide our treasures. But it's us, cried Peter indignantly. Besides, how shall we get back home if you take our chair? But the grooms didn't pay any attention to him. They raced off to the chair, and soon there wasn't a tiny piece of the chair to be seen. For to Peter's dismay, all the little gnomes piled themselves into it and sat there on the seat, the back, the arms, everywhere. Go to our treasure cave, they shouted. The chair flapped its red wings and rose up. The gnomes gave a yell of triumphant delight. We are off. Goodbye. Oh, look, said Molly suddenly. There is something hanging down from the chair. What is it? It's a rope, said Peter. Oh, Chinky, you clever old thing. You have tied it to the leg of the chair, and the other end is tied to that tree trunk over there. The chair can't fly away. No, said Chinky with a grin. It can't. I know those grabbed gnomes. I may not know what 3 times 7 are, but I do know what robbers these gnomes are. Well, they won't find it easy to get away. The chair rose up high until the rope was so tightly stretched that it could go no further. Then the chair came to a stop. There it hovered in the air, flapping its wings, but not moving one scrap. The gnomes shouted at it and yelled, but it was no good. It couldn't go any further. Well, the gnomes are safe for a bit, said Chinky, grinning. Now, what about exploring this village properly, children? So the So the two spent half an hour peeping into the quaint toadstool houses and Chinky gave them gnome cake and gnome lemonade, which were perfectly delicious. All this time, the gnomes were sitting up in the wishing chair, high above the trees, shaking their fists at the children and yelling all kinds of threats. They were certainly well caught, for they could know neither up nor down. Now, we would better go home, said Chinky suddenly, pointing to the east. Look, it will soon be dawn. Now listen to me. I am going to pull that chair down to earth again with your help. We will pull it down quickly and it will land on the ground with such a bump that all the gnomes will be thrown off. Whilst they are picking themselves up, we will jump into the chair and off we will go. Good idea, grinned Peter. So he and Molly and Chinky went to the rope and pulled hard. Hand over hand, the chair came down from the air rapidly, and when it reached the ground, it gave such a bump that every single gnome was thrown off. Oh, they cried, you wait, you wicked children. But they didn't wait. Instead, the three of them jumped into the chair, and Peter called out, take us home, please. Before the gravid gnomes could take hold of the chair, it had risen up into the air. But the gnomes pulled at the rope, and down came the chair again. Quick, cut the rope, shouted Peter to Chinky. Poor Chinky, he was feeling in every one of his many pockets for his knife, and he couldn't find it. The gnomes pulled hard at the rope, and the chair went down still further. And then Chinky found the knife. He leaned over the chair arm, slashed at the rope, and cut it. At once, the chair bounded up into the air free. Home, home, sang Peter, delighted. I say, talk about adventures. Everyone seems more exciting than the last. Wherever shall we go next? Enjoy the stories now. We will keep this adventure journey in the next coming episodes. See you soon.